And we're live. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Sunday night Reef Talk live stream, where today we are going to be talking everybody's favourite subject, Kalkwasser. This is the fifth episode of the Calc chat, I think. Yes, we have audio. Great. I think this is the fifth episode of the Calc journey, and this is kind of the first thing that is the closest thing I have so far to a long-term update. It's only 4 months, which isn't really long-term. 6 months, I think, is the start of something where you can call it long-term, and a year, or ideally 2 years, is proper long-term. Anyway, let's have a chat and see who is in the chat early on. Push Button Reef, YouTube member, greetings reefers, enjoying the British weather. Yeah, it's getting a bit hot. I did a video today on the Reef Talk Extra channel about what I do to keep my tank cool, and it works very well. But tell me what your temperatures got up to. Mine only got up to 25.8, which was wicked. In years gone by, it's got a lot higher than that. One-armed reefer is in the house. YouTube member, Bubbly Reef, Sean Parrish, John Wright, Bubbly Reef again. Oh, you're in Normandy. Ooh, last night, lost 15 degrees. Yeah, it suddenly got quite cold here, to be fair. I think Thursday and Friday, it was pretty hot, 28, 30 degrees, 31 maybe on Friday. And then Saturday and Sunday, nice and cold again. There goes the British summer. What's up, YouTube? Says Aquarian. Les is in the house, moderator, and Les is drinking Red Stripe, which is what I used to drink at uni. Jamie Q, the other mod, is in the house. Welcome along, Jamie. Nice to have you here. Howard is in the house too. What else have we got going on? Mark Martin, Puscheck, and Bubbly Reef is we have a lady. Congratulations, welcome to the chat. I think my YouTube stats say there's something like 5% of female reefers. So I think my perception is that's growing actually. And there are more and more women in the hobby, particularly given that there are sort of people poking their heads up on Instagram. Colette's Marine Reef, something like that. Close Reef, Kit Kat, Take a Break, Have a Kit Kat, something like that. Forget which one that is. But there's a few picking up. So welcome along. And if there are any other ladies, say hello to your sister. Hayley Barr, in fact. Here we go. Evening, Hayley. Brown's Customs, LS10 Works, Matt, Michael Cass Hansen from Denmark is in the house. Who else have we got? Pompey Reefer. Evening, or what better way to spend an evening with Reef Talk live streams and watching my new Mimic Tan sell in? You got this. Nice Mimic Tang. Ian got up to 26.5 degrees, which doesn't feel too bad. I should have asked what everyone's standing temperature was, but never mind. What else have we got? 24.7 to 25. Nice and easy. Sump's in the cellar. Oh, I like that a lot. And Sean Parrish got up to 27 degrees. Jeff and Mick D'Souza are in the house as well, as is Andy the Opinionated Reefer, Happy Corals, Hello Vents, and Merritt McDowell. So we'll talk about Calc. Before we do that, we're going to go over to the member channel of the Reef Talk, the member section of the Reef Talk channel, and I'm going to answer some member questions, one of which is on Kalkwasser, which I'll answer at the end, and that will segue into the rest of the stream. The others, there was a really good question in here about lighting, whereas in fact this is the first one. So Push Button Reef asks, is it okay to set a white spectrum on top of the blues during the day so the tank looks a little more normal, or is blue the only real way to go now? And the reason I like that question so much is because it says, is blue the only way to go now? And that is, it almost suggests that things have changed and hey, it must be that we all need blue lights now. Maybe that's an Instagram thing. Maybe that's a YouTube thing. I don't know. But no, absolutely fine. And I can't remember. There was a video that was done by Coral Euphoria. I forget whether it was cool white or warm white, but he recommended a reasonable amount of one of those. But to be fair, I mean, spectrum, I think you can get a bit too obsessed by. And the way I look at it is make your tank look nice. You do want blues, of course, for LEDs, for your corals, but make your tank look the way you like it to your eye, whether that's particularly white or particularly blue, and your corals will look great. So I wouldn't stress about that too much, personally. And yeah, so in short answer, yeah, you can have white during the day, 100%. And the fact that it's sort of saying nowadays, do we have to have white light? corals haven't changed. So we've been people have nailed keeping Aquapora for 20 years. And if you go back and look at what people were doing 20 years ago, you will have much more success than if you look at what people have started doing necessarily in the last year or two. Not that there haven't been developments in understanding, but you get what I'm saying. Bubbly Reef says, so my Peninsula 500, lovely tank, is now fully cycled. I have 2 clowns, 2 cleaner shrimp. I would really like a one spot foxface. Really be good to go next. I have no signs of algae yet, though. So that's part 1 of the question. I would probably wait a little bit. They'll be fine. In fact, I'm a hypocrite here. I added my one spot foxface more or less straight away. He'll be fine. He'll be absolutely fine. It would be better if he's got some natural algae to graze on, because they do graze literally all day long. So it'll be better for him, but it'll be fine. You can feed him pellet food and you can feed him mysis shrimp, and it won't be too long before he's got plenty of algae to munch on. But if you can wait for a couple of months, then that might be the way to go. I'm not sure I would, though. I think I'd probably chuck him in. This is just between you and me. Don't tell anyone else, because I don't want to be accused of being irresponsible. And the second question, can a pistol shrimp be in the same tank as a cleaner shrimp? 100% yes, no question whatsoever. I have 4 cleaner shrimp in with my pistol shrimp. I've never had problems with pistol shrimp and cleaner shrimp. Bubbly Reef also says, dealing with a heat wave, I have a refractory thermo control, good bit of kit. I have not got a cooler device plugged into that. I did see your fan on top trick. Should I set the program temperature to lower to compensate for the hot weather, or just leave it? So the program temperature to lower. No, you wouldn't turn my temperature down. A lot of people turn the temperature up a little bit in the summer. So if you run it at 25 degrees most of the year round, for the 3 months it gets warmish in the UK, some people would turn it up to 26 degrees, and therefore you're less likely to spike. So if anything, that's the better thing to do. But I wouldn't set it down any lower. Don't trick it into starting the cooling earlier on. It will be fine. And as long as you're not getting a big temperature swing, I'm okay with it. My tank swings by about half a degree centigrade, so 1 degree Fahrenheit in the summer, and I'm personally okay with that. I'm not saying that is the right way to do it, but I'm fine with that, and you're not going to have any real problems. But you could always turn up a degree over the summer to stop that having any bad effect. And now the final member question, which is on Kalkwasser, tonight's subject. And James asks, are there any reasons I shouldn't be dosing Calc? I only ever seem to see positive things about it, but there must be some downsides, right? And that's another question I love, because you're absolutely right to look for downsides. And if people are always talking about the positives, doesn't necessarily mean there aren't downsides. It might just mean that people are being positive about it. So well done for asking that question. The short answer is there are no downsides as far as your tank goes. There are downsides, in my opinion. Downsides are logistical, in that you probably need a larger container. You absolutely do need a larger container than if you were dosing, or dosing 2-part or 3-part, whatever. Or you would, instead of a large container, you would use a calc stirrer, and they are quite expensive. But apart from that, not really any reason not to use calc. And I'm going to be, if we see behind me, there are some rocks piling up here. I'm going to be setting up a new tank in this room, a nano tank. And when I start adding corals, I'm going to be using Kalkwasser on that, which will mean 3 of my 4 tanks, not this one because it doesn't need anything. All 3 of my tanks basically will. I'm just going to turn the fan on because it's getting a bit warm. So the plant's going to start dancing. So all 3 of my tanks will be running on Kalkwasser. There's no real downside as far as I'm concerned, unless you consider saving money and growing corals faster a downside. Growing corals faster can actually be a downside to a point. And my corals are growing faster. I can't tell you, I can't hand on heart and say, wow, the difference I've noticed with my eyes is astonishing. But I know they're going faster because I have to dose. And my dosing uptake has been 3-fold increased almost within a week of starting Kalkwasser. So it absolutely is growing faster. So downside to Calc, takes up a bit more space. In theory, actually, so most Kalkwasser solutions, if you're just using pure Kalkwasser, doesn't increase magnesium. So you might find you have to dose magnesium separately. I don't think I've ever tested magnesium on this tank apart from ICP tests. And magnesium uptake tends to be pretty low. So you'll probably get to the point where you run out of capacity to dose Kalkwasser, and you have to start dosing something on top of that, like Ulfa, and then that should, in theory, take care of your magnesium. But these are kind of theoretical issues, and there's no good reason not to use Kalkwasser. It's cheap, it's good, it raises pH, and it reduces phosphate, which I am very much finding. So we've got a few more temperatures coming in. 28.2, Les, you are the winner so far. Like that. So mine, about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, mine hit that level. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was above 28. And that was at the point when it's normally 25, I was starting to get twitchy and thinking, oh, if it goes any higher, I'm in trouble. And I actually put cardboard, covered the outside of my windows with cardboard to reflect some of the heat away. When the house obviously looked absolutely ridiculous, and my neighbours would have thought I was crazy, but you know, if the hat fits. Happy Corals asks how the Kessels are. Kessels are wicked. I love them. I don't really have much to say about them. The shimmer is amazing, as you know. The colour looks great. The only thing I don't like about Kessels, well, actually, no, that's not true. There are a few things I don't like. They're not very deep blue, so in my opinion, you need supplemental blue lighting. They also don't have an awful lot of power compared to most equivalent lights, and more to the point, what was the other thing? Oh yeah, and really it's just a single point of light. So if you're using Kessels on your own, I don't know, for an LPS or mixed reef might be okay, but I like having lots of light covering the entirety of my tank. What I'd like Kessel to do is make a panel light that is, I don't know, 10 inches by 1 foot long, with 4 pucks on it, one in each corner, so you get quite a lot of spread, but you don't lose out on the shimmer, which is created by having every LED close together, really close, packed in together. So that's what I would like them to do, but I suspect that that's not on the cards anytime soon. And push button, we started with metal halides, including T5s, and tank looked bright and shiny. I bet it did, yeah. You can't really go wrong with that, to be fair, apart from the heat and the electricity. But yeah, I've never tried metal halides. I've always wanted to, and I think they would be wicked. One on Reefer is talking about coral growth. Best coral growth if from halides, which only come in on white spectrum. Yeah, exactly, and that's the other thing. So the halides that you get, I think they go up to 10,000 Kelvin. But most people have halides that are a much whiter spectrum than blue LEDs. I've never compared side by side the spectrums, but my understanding is it is nowhere near as blue, and to the eye anyway, it looks like a yellow white light. So yeah, and nothing grows coral quicker than halides. Fact. That is, there are some things in this hobby that, or most things in the hobby, are a bit like, well, you know, one person might say one thing and 10 people might say the other. It is a fact that halides will grow corals faster than anything else, any other light, even Radeon Gen 6s. Matt Petrie, got all my tanks in place of the house, in places of the house where it doesn't get hot. None of my temperatures move even when hot. That is wicked. I like that a lot. Puth check. Do you clean your calc container every time you do a fresh batch? And for how long? Let your fresh batch to rest before you start dosing. I'll take a sip of tea because I'm British and that's what we do. And do I clean it every time? At the moment, so I've only been doing it 4 months. At the moment, I clean it every other time. I think it lasts 6 weeks, something like that. So I clean it every other rotation because it's a little bit of a faff. My container is really tall, so even though I've got quite long arms, it's the aperture in which I have to put my arm is quite small. So cleaning it is a bit of a faff. So, but I'm not really bothered. I had an ICP test actually back yesterday, and it said no arsenic, which is one of the things people always talk about with calc as being a potential issue. So every other time I suspect is probably fine. Better to do it every time, but it's a pain and I'm lazy, as we all know. And for how long do you let your fresh batch set rest before you start dosing? If I were to plan everything properly, I would leave it for a few hours just to be sure. But what I tend to do is remember half an hour before dosing starts and turn it on very late. And actually, in fact, there are times when I've mixed up a brand new batch and started dosing straight away. Now, the tube has to go. It's the calc vat is in the room behind my tank, So it has to go through a tube, and it takes, I don't know, a minute to get to the actual tank, something like that. So there is a small delay of time, but minuscule, and that's never caused a problem, to be fair. But probably I think the best advice is half an hour, maybe an hour, probably an hour before, just let it settle, but an hour before you plug it in. Andy says the downsides for me is it's quite a hassle compared to dosing. It's also quite nasty stuff to deal with. So I don't find it nasty at all. In theory, it absolutely is, and it comes with warnings that dosing liquids don't. I don't find it more of a hassle, because I suppose you've got to mix it up. Whereas dosing liquids, you usually buy. No one buys the powdered dosing stuff, do they? So yeah, probably a little bit more of a hassle. For me, the main issue is the space, though. And if there was, if it was concentrated and it wasn't, you didn't need 100 litre vat like I do, I would tell everybody to do it without question. 41 degrees C. Wow, where were you? Blimey, middle of the desert. Were you in Abu Dhabi or something? Or where's the desert in Vegas? The whatever it's called over there. Anyway, great topic tonight. How is the micro anemone tank doing? He's up there. It's doing really well, actually. So, sorry, I was just having a look just to make sure everything was fine. So I only have the lights on for 2 hours a day because I want to minimize algae. I'm not really getting much algae on the glass, to be fair, so it's good glass. But they're doing great. They're looking during the day. And when I had a closer look, they've retracted a little bit because the lights have been on for 17 minutes. So maybe there's a bit of light shock. But during the day, when they're just getting ambient sunlight, they're proper stretched out and looking good polyp extension. So yeah, so far so good. It's all doing all right. Temperature's been a bit up and down, but they don't seem to care. I suspect shrimp or certainly a fish might not be quite so keen on that, and certainly corals. But Mahano anemones are all right because they're bomb-proof. Oh, you're in Kuwait. Wow. Okay, fair enough. 41 degrees. Yeah, you're going to get that. Okay, right. So there's a couple more questions, which I'll catch up in a sec. But let me give you my update on Kalkwasser then. So 4 months in, what have I changed? I played around with the dosing period. So what I've always found with normal dosing liquids is counterintuitively, actually, if you dose over a 24-hour period, so once an hour every 24 hours, that makes a smoother dosing. That gives you a smoother KH line than if you dose just when your lights are on. And you would think that when your lights are on, that's when your corals are uptaking the most alkalinity and calcium. So that's when you should be dosing to replace the stuff they're taking. But actually, I've always found with normal dosing, 24 hours a day, dosing the same amount overnight as you dose during the day, gives a flatter line than it does if you just dose when your lights are on. I'm sure there's a scientific reason behind that, or maybe this is just my tank being funny, but that's what I've always found. So I tried switching to 24 hours a day dosing Kalkwasser. What I had been doing before was dosing my full tank's evaporation, which is around 3.5 litres, something like that, dosing that amount during the night, overnight. So when my pH is crashing or dropping slowly, to offset that, of course, which is the Chris Meckley method. But I tried going 24 hours, and what I found was this. So here is my pH graph, and this is when I was dosing 24 hours a day. And that, I don't know if that immediately looks like a big swing, but it's a huge swing, and the graph really dips down and then goes really high up. Bizarrely, I still got really high peaks, 8.47. I forget what it was peaking at before, but it was around that kind of level. But I still get very high peaks, but I get very low troughs. So 8.14 to 8.47. And that's quite a big swing, to be fair. And just look at that graph. That graph is huge. The dip is huge. Whereas if we fast forward to now, boom, much, much, much smoother. So actually, and I don't know if this is because I've only just swapped over, but the peak isn't that high, 8.38. That's still plenty. That's fine. But the trough last night went down to 8.21. So a much, much smoother graph I found by dosing overnight than dosing 24 hours a day. The cost of that, because as with everything in life, for every benefit there is a cost. The cost of that is that my alkalinity swings more with dosing overnight than it did when I was dosing 24 hours a day. When I was dosing a Kalkwasser 24 hours a day, my KH level was pretty stable, maybe a 0.2 DKH swing. Whereas now I've switched to dosing that overnight, I get about a half a DKH swing throughout the day, which some people think is unacceptable. I think it's all right. I would probably rather reduce that, but anyway, so that's what I found so basically you've got to choose between, or I'm currently having to choose between a flat pH line, flattish pH line, or a flat KH line, and I've chosen flat pH because I don't want my pH to drop too far. However, I'm going to try to flatten off my KH line by dosing, because of course I'm still dosing normal 2-part ATI Essentials Plus on top of Kalkwasser, so I should be able to smooth out the KH line with that. So that's the first thing I've noticed. Second thing I've noticed, my phosphate now. I talked about this all the time. My phosphate has always been high on this tank. The peak was 0.6, which is basically when there's more phosphate than there is water. And until recently, it's been around 0.25, 0.3, still pretty high. And it's always been around that kind of level. I did try dosing lanthanum chloride to bring it down, which was relatively successful, but I didn't want to really. It's very good stuff, and if I dosed enough of it, it would have removed all my phosphate. But I didn't want to go too aggressive on that, and I've stopped dosing that because I don't want lanthanum levels to build up in my tank. But what I found now, I've been dosing Calc a while, is my phosphate, and I'm not using any Roaphos. I'm not using any Roaphos, and my phosphate is now at 0.11. I tested that today, and I tested it yesterday, and it's sitting at 0.11, which is much better. Still a bit higher than I'd like, to be fair, but much better than 0.25, 0.3. And so that's a huge benefit of Kalkwasser, I'm finding, in my experience anyway, is that it is reducing phosphate. I am also using, the only other thing I'm using specifically for phosphate is a Limi NP, no, Bactobalance, Tropic Marion Bactobalance, which is carbon dosing. I don't know how effective that is for phosphate. I should probably, well, no, I shouldn't. I could turn that off and just see how things change, but I don't want to. If it's not broken, I'm not going to try messing with it just to see for some data. So my pH graph is nice and high, 8.2 to 8.4 basically, which is great. That's as healthy as I would want it to be. My phosphate is much lower than it was before, so all is looking good, right? Well, kind of. And this is the one reason. So I haven't done a main video where I explain Kalkwasser. What I want to do is get to the point where I can do a video that just on Kalkwasser and try to spread the word basically and get as many people onto it as possible, because I do think it is wicked and most people should be using it. Not many reasons why you wouldn't want to. However, the reason I've held off from doing that video is my numbers look fantastic, but actually I can't hand on heart say I'm noticing a difference in the tank apart from growth. So my growth, well, in fact, even that, my alkalinity consumption, my dosing minerals consumption increased threefold when I started dosing Kalkwasser. So my corals are growing quicker, although I don't look at it to the eye and think, bloody hell, you can see them growing in front of me. But they are growing quicker. I could say that confidently. But other differences, other benefits to the tank, I can't honestly say I'm getting better polyp extension or better coloration, or even my corals are hardier. One of the things I did expect was that my corals' underlying hardiness might be improved because they're going to be a bit stronger. They don't have to fight so hard. They're more resilient. I'm not finding that. I'm still from time to time I lose SPS corals. Not very often, but it does happen from time to time. And recently, one of my aquapora, if you've seen the video from Friday, I removed a Monty, and one of the aquos started stripping bizarrely after I moved that Monty that was killing it. And I did wonder if having a much better pH line that might make my corals more immune to those sorts of things, but I can't say I've noticed any difference with that. So I'm holding off doing that just for the moment, that video, but I will do it at some point. I think when I do it, I'm likely to say it'll definitely make your corals grow quicker. It will increase your pH. It will decrease your phosphate, which is fantastic because lots of people, myself included, don't like changing Roaphos. And it's cheaper. So that's probably the benefits I will be talking about. I would love to say it's making all my corals look really healthy and bright, and they're all much more resilient now, but I can't say that. And I've made various changes. I've changed my lights recently, of course. So I can't necessarily attribute everything to one thing when I make several changes. But there we go. The other thing, so I've started dosing Kalkwasser, as I've said, on my second tank. I don't know, 2 months in, maybe something like that. And I've already reached the limit. In fact, I meant to bring up a photo, which I'm going to do now, to show you the what I mean basically with this. So let's move that across there. And I'm going to show you, because actually on that tank, so I've been dosing Kalkwasser for, like I said, 2 months or so, something like that. And I've already reached the point at which I'm at the limit of the amount of Kalkwasser I can dose, because of course you can't dose more than your tank loses to evaporation per day. On this tank, it's a 150 litre tank, and I think my evaporation is around 1.5 litres, and I'm dosing around 1.4 litres per day of Calc at the moment, fully saturated Calc. And this is what my tank looks like. So to be fair, there's quite a few corals in there. There's a big old Dorasa clam, and they don't half soak up alkalinity. There are some Montes in there that grow like buggery, as we all know. There are plenty of LPS corals, and there are loads of little SPS frags in there too. But the reason I wanted to post this photo is because this is just my experience on this one tank, but I don't think that's an absolutely packed full chock-a-block tank that is crammed with wall-to-wall with corals, and yet I've already reached the limit, more or less, as to what I can dose in terms of Kalkwasser. So there'll come a point when I have to start dosing two-part dosing liquids on top of that. That's not a reason not to dose Calc, because all you need to do if you're a beginner particular, dose Calc until you get to the point where you can't dose anymore, and then dose all for reef. You're still only using one extra pump. It's just as easy as anything else. But I feel like I've reached the limit quite quickly, and I'm now going to need to start dosing on top of that. And that's quicker than I expected. I thought it might take me a little bit further. But nonetheless, in fact, actually, I should say on that tank, let's go back to that picture. One coral that is growing like crazy is on the left-hand side over here. This is a fascination favia, and that thing grows like mad in here. Whether that's anything to do with Calc, though, who knows? But yeah, so that's the only other thing I would say is that I seem to have reached the limit of what Calc can do quite quickly. So there you go. And then unlike with dosing, you can dose as much as you can, just keep increasing dosing as much as you want. And I dose 90 milliliters of ATI Essentials plus per day, which is quite a lot actually. But I could, if my corals kept on growing and growing and growing, got bigger and bigger and bigger, I could double that easily, whereas I can't double my Calc. So those are the downsides of that. And that's really the Calc update. So we'll keep chatting about Calc because I'm sure there will be questions. But for now, let's go and catch up with the chat. So Matt Petrie, has anyone used Red Sea Reef Energy Plus? The guy at the store said to dose it once a week, but says on the bottle you should do it daily. I got sent a bottle when it first came out, and I used it for, I don't know, 6 months. They sent me the first bottle, then I started buying bottles myself. I used it permanently for around 6 months. I think I've done a long-term review, and I used it on and off for about a year, maybe 2 years. 2 years probably. And I just, I'm not a fan of broadcast feeding regularly tanks like that, because you're feeding everything. You're feeding digitate hydroids that I had at the time. What are those little annoying worms? The snails. The bumblebee snails supposedly eat them. Whatever they are. Aptasia, you're feeding all these sorts of things, not just your corals. And I just don't think it's necessary. If you're trying to make your corals grow as fast as absolutely possible and squeeze out every last drop of growth, then yeah, fine. But in my opinion, especially when you're new, you're far better off just getting the basics right, getting your nitrate and phosphate levels right, getting your lighting right, getting flow right, and then your corals will grow nicely as it is. So I'm not a massive fan of broadcast feeding. There are some corals, some LPS corals that love a bit of, put a couple of LPS pellets on them. That's what I do. But there are plenty of people who say broadcast feeding, things like Red Sea Reef Energy, is good. I personally wouldn't bother. I think it's going to cause you more problems than it's going to do you good. And I think some people it will suit some people, but I think probably not most people. And I think 90% of people shouldn't feed anything, whether it's Red Sea or anything else. It's not the Red Sea stuff is bad. I just think 90% of people shouldn't do that. But that's my opinion. Fangoriously. Reef Talk. I dose Calc in my 16-gallon reef for my ATO. The pH swings from 7.9 to 8.3, morning to lights dim. Should I be worried about the swing or look into a doser? I would put it on a doser. I've never dosed it on the through my ATO, but that's because of the reasons everyone says. It'll depend on the season, so you'll dose more in the winter than you will in the summer and all these sorts of things. So I would absolutely put on a doser. That's what I do. And then you'll be able to flatten that out. Although, to be fair, I wouldn't be massively concerned. I'm not a pH expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't be concerned about a swing from 7.9 to 8.3. I don't think that's going to cause you any major problems. But if you do want to flatten out, dose it overnight from the time your lights. So if your lights are at their brightest during the day at 9 p.m., start dosing Calc then, and then stop dosing when the lights have been on, when they've started to ramp up for an hour or so. Michael Cassanson. I had a tank when I came home and all dead. Oh, no. 31.5 degrees Celsius. Said on my computer that was the end of tank. Oh, man, I'm so sorry. 31.5, that's really hot, yeah. So oxygen depletes, fish die. That's awful. It's bizarre, though, because I've scuba dived in 30-degree seas, temperature in the sea. And then the next day it was 5 degrees cooler. Bloody hard work diving in 30 degrees, by the way. And the corals were fine. So, I don't know, it's a small box there, isn't it? So I'm sure that the temperature difference changes much, much more quickly. LS10 works. My tank got to 28.8, which I put down to the hot weather. Yeah. Turned my UV pump. Turned off my UV pump. I think it was blocked out, trickling past the bulb. Coming out 31 parts. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So I turned my UV off. Well, I don't have one anymore, but in the past, I've turned my UV off when it gets really hot. Because in particular, the one I had, which is a metal halide UV bulb, got hot. So I used to turn that off. But wow, that's really hot. I now use just home tower fans. I've got a Russell Hobbs 13-inch tower fan, and it's wicked. I'll show you actually. Let me just bring it up on Instagram. Here we go. So this is the tower fan I have, and it blows this really nice sheet of air across the top of the tank, and it is much, much more powerful than the hobby grade fans that you get. Although the hobby grade fans are actually surprisingly good. I would use one of those for days like this, because in the UK we only get hot days 4 or 5 times a year. So I would go for something like that. It's bloody noisy, but it's worth it. What else have we got? 20k radium for the win, with halides, ran them for 20 years, and I suspect very successfully. What else have we got going on? Rollies Reef. I use a 20-gallon brute trash can with a float valve for IODI, refill once a week, and run a small pump for a few minutes, mix it, and not add the powder. I might have missed something. This is for your Calc. Yeah. It is. Yeah, it's as easy as that. And when I stir up my Calc, I don't sit there stirring it for hours, making sure I get every little bit. I stir it for 30 seconds, maybe a bit longer, and then it's fine. It's done. And I've never noticed a difference in potency. Not that I've checked formally. And oh dear, UK Reef Bro is in hospital. Hope you're all right. Let's have a scan forward. You've got a stupid infection. Nasty. I hope that is just something minor. Infections can be absolutely awful, can't they? And everybody is wishing you well and saying, hope it's nothing serious. And Merrick McDowell wants to know what my dosing setup is. So I dose ATI Essentials Plus, which means I need 2 dosing pumps, and I have Refactory single head dosing pumps, which I bought myself. The only piece of Refactory kit I have bought. They're very good. The software is brilliant. The app's really good. And that's it. That's the end of the dosing setup. The Kalkwasser, I use a Ecotech Versa because it's a continuous duty pump. That's also very good. It's very quiet. Works fine. The app isn't as good as I'd like, but it's fine. And that's my dosing setup basically. I do have other dosing pumps that I dose things like Bacto Balance, and until recently I was dosing lanthanum chloride, but I don't use them anymore. So, and Red Bull 85 says, don't forget to smash the like button in the face. Andy, I had swings last summer from 26 to 29 every day. 29 degrees in Scotland. Bloody hell, Andy. I'd never heard such craziness. Due to T5s heating up. Right. There we go. That's the explanation. T5s heating up the tank. Yeah, okay. Had no issues with corals, even aquapora. So my T5s are quite high up. It's great that the acros were fine in that kind of temperature. I guess 3 degrees isn't that big a swing, so it probably helped you that, or you've deliberately chosen a higher base temperature. My T5s are quite high off the tank, so I don't think it particularly affects it now, but they do kick off a reasonable amount of heat. And Les has just switched to Evergrows from T5s. Evergrows with T5s, yeah, which is a very good combination. Although I found my Evergrow was a bit too wide, which meant my T5s were further out than I would have liked, and didn't the T5 light didn't go in the tank as much as I would have wanted it to. But still, Evergrows are wicked, as I say regularly, and as you all know. Dosing at night works better for me. My pH goes above 8.7 without dosing calc during the day. Bloody hell, that's huge. How the hell's that happening? What I can't think what you might be doing to get it that high. I see this is there are various videos knocking around about pushing the boundaries. There was one Dev from Reef Dudes did recently with Chummingham's Reef, and he pushes pH really high. I don't want to be a pioneer. I don't want to be pushing those kind of levels. And people don't seem to have any problems. So I guess if there's no problem, crack on. But I don't like that. It makes me nervous. Until people have been running tanks for 8.7, 8.8 for years with no problems, I'm not going to be doing that. But although, to be fair, mine just sits at the level it sits at without me doing anything, which is probably the way it does for most people. John Wright says, what make of calc do you use, Alex? I use Reef Flowers because it is enriched with magnesium. So I don't have my magnesium problem, and strontium for what it's worth. But it's expensive. You can just buy the stuff off eBay from APC. There's a chemical company who make all sorts of things. I can't remember what they're called. And you can get it for a quarter of the price. But I like having a picture of a coral on a box. So it's so cheap anyway. I think it cost me 20 quid, maybe 30 quid for 9 months. I mean, you can't get much cheaper than that. 854 watts. Yeah, okay. And the power module. Yeah, I had a power module a while ago. Yeah, that's quick maths. God, I can't do the maths on that. 400 watts? 400 watts ish of intense heating. From what I understand, large pH swings are not harmful at all as long as the low is not too low. Natural reefs. Yeah, I'd be more bothered about a low. So my pH before got down to 7.65 before I started all this Kalkwasser malarkey. And I was bothered by that when I found out, but I was never bothered by a bit of a swing. But hey. And California Abound says hello from California, of course. Chris Lancashire Reef says, could you dose 24 hours a day, but higher at night and lower during the day, and try a balance between both pH and KH? You could do. I can't be asked, to be completely honest. And I think I can balance off the KH during the day. Yeah, you could do, but actually, no, it's not that I can't be bothered. That's not true. The reason is because I would prefer to reduce my pH drop overnight as much as possible, because it really does drop. So I would prefer to load up. I would prefer to load up overnight as much as possible, and I'm prepared to sacrifice the offset during the day. And we have celebrity YouTuber, Queen of Reef, Stephanie in the house. Welcome along, Stephanie. Good to have you here. Hello. Alex Aquarian says, does the pH swing in the sea at different parts of the day or not? So are you mimicking the sea or keeping artificial parameters? I don't know. I don't think it does. And the Aussie YouTuber, Simply Aquariums, I think she did a test and found that it didn't change for what it's worth. But I don't think it does, no. But I don't try to. There are some things that you want to mimic the ocean, but most things actually you don't. Our tanks are nothing like the ocean. So a lot of people often say, oh, well, I do this because it's what you get in the ocean. But it's not always necessarily the way to go. And I don't know. But anyway, I'm digressing slightly. But no, I don't necessarily try to mimic the sea. I try to just keep my pH up, basically. And Queen of Reef. My return pump on my nano tank and my pico tank has just started going crazy. One sec. There we go. I've turned it off. Queen of Reef is dosing Kalkwasser. We're starting to switch over too. Excellent. Glad to hear it. The more people who can spread the word, the better, I think. There's no real good reason why Kalkwasser fell out of favour and stopped being so popular. I don't just because it's not sexy, I guess. So the more people who do it, the better. And what else have we got? Oh, hang on, we're skipping ahead. Right. If I could chip, I would. Oh, you're talking to someone else. Oh yeah, you broke your scape, didn't you? Yeah, in a move. Moving tanks is a nightmare. There's always something that goes wrong. All for even Calc would be a great combination. Indeed, I think that is the way most people should go. Newbies should start with Calc and then bump up with top up with All for Reef when you max out on your evaporation. Been dosing about out of a 55-gallon semi-sealed drum, pH at 8.35 yesterday with 8 litres. What? 8 litres? 8 litres? How big's your tank? Still have about 8,000 milliliter evaporating capacity left. Sorry, that's 8 litres. That's 16 litres of evaporation per day. Ryan, I need to know how big your tank is. That must be enormous. 16 litres a day. That must be 2,000 litres, maybe more. Bloody hell. No. Anyway, tell me how big it is. I'm interested to know. How many months in would you start dosing? Only when, and Paul has smashed the like button. Well done. How many months in would you start dosing? When you start, I've done a dosing guide, a video about dosing, which is called how to dosing, what you need to know about dosing. Can't remember. You can go and find it. But the point at which you want to start dosing, it's not after how many months, it's not after how many corals you add. You need to, once you've been adding corals, you need to be testing your alkalinity regularly. And when you get to the point where your alkalinity is dropping, so if you test it on Monday and it's 8.0, you test it on Tuesday, it's 7.8, Wednesday, it's 7.6, Thursday, it's 7.4. It never goes that smoothly, but you get the point. That's when you need to be dosing to start bringing it up. So just test, and when if your alk isn't stable and it's dropping and dropping and dropping, that's when you need to start dosing. And you need to start dosing very, very gently to start with. But it's probably when you've got a handful of corals in, maybe. It varies on every tank, and you might have purple algae. What's the purple algae called? Coralline. You might have coralline taking that stuff up as well. So it depends. Vermitid worms, vermitid snails. Yes, that's it. That's what I was thinking of. Thank you. I need someone sat by me here who can just be like, Alex, this is what you mean when you start talking. And I forget things because I have a terrible memory. What else have we got going on? Try a weak slurry. It's a game changer. I'm 4 times saturated slurry. Dose the same as ACI. So I am slurry curious, as Telegram puts it. For now, I'm sticking with calc, with saturated calc, because it does fine for me. And I would want to invest in a bit more equipment if I was going to go the slurry route. But I do like the idea of calc slurry, and if I can see more and more people having success with it long term with no problems, I'll be on that. And Jim's been doing it for over a year now, with backed up with ICP tests, and everything is going very well indeed. So I'm tempted, but for now I'm sticking with saturated calc. All good until your pump seizes, yeah. But then that's what. So the Telegram has 2 Jebao SLW10s or 20s. So the chance of them both packing up at the same time are pretty slim. It is of course possible, but who knows? Any objections to frozen water bottles in the sump? So I've seen the maths on that before, and it doesn't make a difference supposedly unless you've got a small tank. I did think about doing that for my Pico tank, putting an ice cube in the sump of frozen of RID. No, it wouldn't have worked with RID. Anyway, putting an ice cube in there. No objection, as long as no objection really, but don't expect it to make a massive difference. New Orleans is OU812 is in the house representing Southern America. Welcome along. What is the best starter fish for saltwater? I mean, don't get damsels, because everybody's or lots of advice says get damsels because they're hardy and they can tolerate ammonia. You shouldn't be putting fish in the tank with ammonia. Ammonia is horrendous to be swimming around in if you're a fish. It burns them, literally burns them. It's awful stuff. So don't get damsels for that. Make sure you have no ammonia. But more to the point, clownfish are probably the best. Clownfish are damsel, are from the damsel family, to be fair. But clownfish are different, and they can get aggressive, but most of the time they are not. And clownfish are about as good as starter fish as you can get. But really, it depends on what you like. There are plenty of fish that would be suitable. I would start with clownfish, partly because they are hardy as well. So if there is a problem, then it won't affect them as much as it might do other fish. But really, you don't want to be relying on fish to be hardy, which is why they don't get damsels, apart from clowns. 145 mil of soda ash during the day. Okay, to a 100-gallon system. Wow. Yeah, okay. That's quite a lot. That's even more than I dose, actually. And I believe ATI Essentials Plus is soda ash based. So that's why you're getting 8.7 pH. Use a big swamp cooler because it's the air is very dry here. So the air exchange is giving huge pH boost during the summer. Very interesting. Currently have 5-litre water containers in the chest freezer filled with RO. Swapping them around works very well for our Dorset sunshine. Lovely part of the world. You've got the Ocean Project on your doorstep. Fantastic local fish shop. It's been up and running for over a year now, and it's looking wicked. Yeah, okay. So there you go. If you're swapping them around, then maybe it's working and maybe it's worth it. And if you're at home, then why not? Kalkwasser sounds like some kind of homebrew. Does a little bit. Yeah, Calc brow. Maybe. Oh, yes. That's my side hustle to make money. Calc brow. Wicked. I mean, it's a niche market. There's got to find people who like homebrew and people who like saltwater tanks and people who like Kalkwasser. So, what's the Venn diagram look like on that? But anyway, I like it. I'm stealing the idea. Preachy, hi all. Anyone know of UK products to help a tang that has started to show signs of head and lateral line erosion? There is something you can do to treat HLLE. I don't know what it is, to be honest. Never had it, fortunately. So you're going to have to do some Googling. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's treatable. But fortunately for me, I've never had it. And Florida Reefer says, hello and happy Father's Day. Is it Father's Day today? Is it Father's Day in the UK? Dad, don't suppose you're watching, but if you are, happy Father's Day. Fahab Al-Muhareb says, favourite fish. I love, what's the little red guy in my tank? The little hawkfish, scarlet hawkfish. They're wicked. But loads of awesome fish. 750 gallons. Wow, that's 3,000 litres. That's huge. Yeah, okay, so 16 litres of evaporation is probably about right. Wow, massive tank. I'd like to see that. pH does change in the ocean, but nowhere near as much as in the tank. pH goes up during the lighting period, sun's up, due to photosynthesis, and goes down at night due to everything breathing in the tank in the sea. Yeah, makes sense. And Ian Rodbert is in the house. Welcome along, Ian. Hope everything is going all right with you. I think you're more or less out of the woods now. So good to see you back in the pub. And Barry Goss Sr. says Nemo, which you might be saying the best starter fish. And Kenneth Rhodes has joined late, which is fine. And actually, this is one night. So I often say that I'm going to finish early. I start the stream saying I'm going to keep up with the chat and I'm not going to let this run on for 2 hours, and I fail every week. But this week I am going to. So we're not going to be running for 2 hours. I'll probably look to around the hour-ish mark and we'll wrap it up. So we'll keep it relatively short. Packed SPS tank. Forget what you're talking about. Oh, this is the 8.7 pH that you're getting. Those of you who are using Kalkwasser, actually, tell me what benefits you see and not what benefits people tell you and not what benefits to your numbers, i.e. your pH is great, your phosphate is low, or whatever. How has it improved your tank? Because like I say, it's improved my growth for sure. Beyond that, though, I'm not seeing any massive, significant increase or any noticeable increase, I should say. So tell me, if you use Calc, what do you think? What difference have you noticed? And all done, buddy. Plenty on the rack again. Excellent. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Yeah, really, really pleased to see. And good to have you back. I'll be tapping you up for some frags again soon, no doubt. Kenneth Rhodes, I have glass tops on a 180. Would going to screens help with pH? Screens. What's the difference between a glass top and a screen? This is not a poor joke. This is a question. A glass top is going to limit your evaporation. Would it harm pH? Don't know. Never tried it. Couldn't tell you. In theory, probably would do because you're not getting so much gas exchange. But don't know. But taking away your lid will absolutely help. Will it help pH? I don't know. Probably. I think it makes sense that it would do, but I've never had a lid, or a proper firm fixed lid on top. But I think it would make sense if it would help if you took that off and put a cover on, obviously, just a mesh cover, so your fish don't jump out. My wrasses jump all the time, by the way. They're constantly splashing water onto the floor. If I put food in, half the time they splash at the top of the tank and splash me. It's hilarious, but a little bit irritating. So yeah, fish jump. If you've ever thought they don't. Started a new 60-gallon tank 3 months ago. I carried over 1 Duncan coral with 3 heads. That consumed enough alk after 1 week to need to start dosing. It now has 20 heads. So I say dose after first corals. I say test after your first coral for sure. But yeah, you might well find that you get to the point where 1 coral in, you need to start dosing. Very, very small amount, I suspect. But yeah. And even if you've got 1 coral, if you're just doing water changes every week, that'll tide you over for a reasonable period of time. But really, you're getting away with it. So you'll be able to get away with water changes at first. But yeah, you should be testing calc as much as you can. Basically, it's a bit of a faff when you have to do it every week, which is why you get an alkalinity monitor. They're wicked. Just got a new 40 cube. Any ideas for fish? Go on liveaquaria.com. Looking for more uncommon things, but not expert level. Go on to Live Aquaria. Go on to Marine Fish, and they've got, I don't know, 1,000 different fish, and just find the ones that you can sort by expert only, beginner, all that sort of stuff, aggressive, semi-aggressive, tank size, all those sorts of things. Go and have a look. I would have a scarlet hawkfish for sure, because I think they're wicked. And I would have what they're called, shrimp gobies, because they're awesome. I'd have a blenny, probably a Midas blenny, maybe a lawnmower blenny, because blennies is just wicked. The little I'm setting up a new tank, which is what that scape is for, a nano tank, and I might be getting a Pictus blenny. I think they're really cool, although I think they can nibble corals sometimes, so I'm on the fence about that. LS10 works. I've been dosing Alpha Reef for 6 months. Seems stable, but I'm having to add extra magnesium here and there. I'm surprised at that. If changing to Kalkwasser, would you suggest adding calc to top off? No, I would not. And adjust Alpha Reef as needed. No. So I've never used calc in an auto top off, but it's because of the reason that everybody says. If you watch all the bulk reef supply videos on it, they say don't do it. It'll clog up your auto top off pump, and your evaporation changes over the seasons and even changes day to day. So it's never a consistent level. You don't have control over it. Whereas if you're dosing out of a container, you tell the dosing pump how much to dose. So I wouldn't use it in auto top off for pump corroding, instability, and lack of control reasons. John White has loads of stomatella snails in my sump. Would they get eaten in my display? What have you got in your display? Wrasse might eat them, but most wrasses I find don't eat snails. I used to have an earmuff wrasse who he just try to kill my snails because he's an arse. I think he'd just peck them, kill them, and then he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm done now." Like bullying nerds or something. And I had a Melanurus wrasse, nasty wrasses that I don't like them, and he would kill snails. I can't remember. It was years ago I had that. Can't remember if he ate them, but probably not. But try. I'm trying to think what other fish might eat them, and angelfish might peck at them because they've just got a fingernail on their back, haven't they? Really, they've not got much protection. But I have loads in my sump as well on this tank anyway. On my main tank, I don't think I have any. I've never seen any. But I do see them from time to time in my display tank, actually. And all I've got is a small Tommy Tang, yeah, and 2 little damsels, 2 Springer's damsels. So I don't think any of them would bother attacking them. But try it. They're wicked little things, stomatella snails. I like them a lot. Oh, wow, hang on a second. We've had a rush of messages, of chats. Maths Reef. Kalkwasser on a nano. Thoughts are, do it. I have a CO2 scrubber, but it doesn't seem to boost enough. I hate CO2 scrubbers. They're expensive and more to the point. You've got to change the media all the time. I don't like them. If you're on a nat, so you must have a skimmer though running. If you've, but anyway, that doesn't matter. Yeah, absolutely. Those Kalkwasser 100%. When I set up this tank, it's going to be a fluval. That's the scape there. It's going to be a fluval Evo 13.5, so probably about 45 liters, 12 gallons ish. After displacement, maybe even a bit less, and I will be dosing Kalkwasser on that for sure. I might end up need to dose more, probably a bit of Alpha Reef, But yeah, for 100%, there's no reason not to dose calc on any tank. He says carefully, trying to think, are there any reasons? But no, there aren't really any downsides to dosing calc. I guess you've got to be careful in theory of dosing the sludge that sits at the bottom of the container, because supposedly that can contain arsenic. But there are people out there now starting to dose all of that stuff because they've just got it storming up in a bucket with the slurry and not having ill effects. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. But actually, that's the one thing that I didn't say earlier, that is any reason not to dose it. There's a theoretical risk that you might introduce some undesirable elements like arsenic, which you don't want. Fish probably won't like swimming in arsenic. But yeah, I've never actually seen that, to be fair, so I don't know how likely or otherwise that is. Would calc benefit a tank with soft and LPS corals only? Yes, absolutely. Soft corals, I don't think I've ever kept a soft coral only tank, so I don't really know how much alkalinity they would uptake. But soft and LPS, you've got LPS taking up some of your alkalinity and calcium, so absolutely 100%. Yes, if you need to dose, calc would benefit it for sure. And LPS often run really slow, don't they? Grow really slow. And so give them a little bit of a kick up the backside with a bit of stronger pH seems like a good thing to do. And I've seen, Rolly, you've posted a couple of things that I've missed. Growth, polyp extension. Ah, yes, that's it. I saw your first message and I was like, what are you saying that for? Okay, so you've seen, this is benefits of Kalkwasser. You have seen growth, polyp extension. Growth and polyp extension. I kind of noticed polyp extension on one of my corals, but since then, actually, it started retracting. It's not doing so well, and that's a tenuous. But okay, so growth and polyp extension. And polyp extension is one of the things that I was told to expect by the guy from the Ocean Project, Sean Acroman, who I had on the stream a while ago, who knows his stuff. Okay, so there we go. So I've not seen many people piling in saying my corals look healthier. They don't bleach. They have better coloration, that sort of stuff. But fine, still. But growth. Who doesn't like growth? Who doesn't want more growth in corals, especially in the early days? Right, let's go back forwards anyway. Can you OD on calc? Yes, you can do. If I had one coral in my tank and I was dosing the amount of Kalkwasser that I'm currently dosing to maintain, I don't know, 50 corals or whatever it is, then yes, I would be overdosing calc. So yes, you absolutely can. Yes, you absolutely should be starting very slowly and building up. But yeah, you can. Same as any dosing supplement. Anything that replaces calcium and alkalinity, it is possible to overdose. Rodders runs a Deltec 601S, which is a large reactor, no color change, just loads more growth, very healthy pH of 6.2 to 6.7. Night to day, apart from that, no difference. Very healthy, 6.2. That must be 8.2, unless you're talking about the effluent from the calc reactor. But yeah, okay, cool. So growth. Basically, everyone says that's it. If you're dosing Kalkwasser, you're going to get better growth. You might get some other benefits, but don't necessarily expect it. But you're going to get growth, and growth is good. Growth is money as well if you've got nice aquapora corals like Ian has. And Mike, I've got loads of corals, loads of frags at the moment. SPS frags are an inch big, and I want them to grow faster. So yeah, cool. The growth is massive. UK reef process. Polyp extension is also better, and everything just seems happier. Fair enough. And Ian's been running for 18 months now. Cool. PO4 bottomed out. Simon Middleton's PO4 bottomed out using calc, and I had to stop using it. Even dosed PO4 back in, but made no difference. Using Reef Elements pH plus, which keeps my pH higher, and PO4 is now slowly coming up. That's probably a niche problem, but yeah, for sure, that's something to look out for. Actually, I would just feed more. I think actually, I would take that as an opportunity to increase my feeding, which I would like to do all the time anyway. But okay, interesting point. And Nick from Aquarium Cabinet Solutions is in the house. Philip Harrison, I think that we've got this. YouTube's doing that thing where it keeps posting the same question over and over again. I suspect you've only asked that once. Is it too high to keep phosphate at 0.1 for SPS? Oh, right. I say, is phosphate 0.1 too high for SPS? My phosphate is 0.11 at the moment, and it's fine. You're better running at a lower level. but every tank is different. And if your SPS are doing fine, then maybe stick with it. But I would probably try to bring that down to around 0.05 in an ideal world. But I wouldn't sweat it too much. It's not like they're going to die overnight just because you've got relatively high phosphate. But you might find they brown out a little bit. This tank to my left does have phosphate of, what did I test? Actually, you know what? I'll get my sad little diary out that my missus always takes a mick out of. 0.15. I start writing my results in here, and I hear over my shoulder saying, "Dear diary, today I looked at my fish." So my tank, sorry, I'm digressing. My phosphate in this tank is 0.15, and my SPS corals, the Montes look great, the Zoas and LPS look great, but my Aquapora look a bit brown. I'm not 100% sure it's because of phosphate. I think that's probably it though. So my Aquapora aren't doing great on that. But Montes look wicked, to be fair. So even at 0.15. Barry Gossenia. Going to switch to Calc when I get my Apex Triton bundle. Currently using 2-part and it works okay, but not happy with an average pH of 8. Need the pH boost, absolutely. I found my Millipora have better Polyp Extension. So loads of, and colour. Loads of people saying Polyp Extension, loads of people saying growth. I'm considering a Fluval Evo frag tank and was wondering if I could add a 6-line RAS if it were with any fish. Yes, you could, and that would be a wicked fish actually, because they're really cool. When I started researching this hobby, I was obsessed with the idea of getting a 6-line because I think they look awesome, but I decided not to because they're just evil. But yeah, if it's your only fish, absolutely. The only thing is that if you change your mind in 3 months' time or 6 months' time or a week's time and you want more fish, it's a bit of a lottery, and you might get away with it, but he might be evil. So I probably still wouldn't personally, and I would get, if you're really keen on it being a RAS for pest purposes. I'm not sure there's that much value in RASes for pest purposes, to be honest. Maybe there is, but I've whenever I've had flatworms in my tank, I stopped feeding. They were just on a little Porites coral. They were covered in this. They covered this one coral, but didn't go anywhere else. And I stopped feeding for a week. Maybe I needed to hold my nerve for longer, but the RASes didn't touch him. I had 3 or 4 Halichoris RASes in there. They weren't interested. Maybe I needed to hold out my nerve for longer. But for that reason, I wouldn't necessarily bother with RASes. But lots of people do that, and I do that partly because of pest control. But yeah, in theory, yeah, I probably wouldn't, because it might restrict your options later on down the line. Mick D'Souza also uses Alpha Reef, and I also have to top up magnesium. Interesting. Okay, fine. So keep an eye on magnesium if you're dosing Kalkwasser. And here we go. The YouTube algorithm's going crazy and posting Philip Harrison's question over and over and over again. 6-line RAS, Copperband, Foxface, Valentini Puffer, Coral Beauty, etc. These are your favourite fish, I reckon. 6-line RAS. Melanurus RAS are ferocious. They are, yeah. Watch my emerald crab disappear down its throat. Little bastard. Yeah, I didn't like mine. It looked wicked, but it got quite big, and it just got aggressive. I don't like aggression. How many fish do you have in your tank? Love your eclectic mix. I'm going to give you a proper answer rather than just guess, or am I? Maybe I'm not going to be able to tell you. I've not got that many, actually. I had a load of Anthias that just slowly dwindled in numbers over whatever period of time. But so, do you know what? I think I have 16. I'm going to list these out, and you need to count them as we go along. Radiant RAS, Silver Belly RAS, One Spot Foxface, 2 Da Vinci Clownfish, Randall's Goby, Scarlet Hawkfish, Long-Nosed Hawkfish, Geometric Pygmy Perchlet, Royal Grammar, Yellow RAS, which is Halichoris crius, Jawfish, Falco Hawkfish, Copper-Banded Butterfly, Starry Blenny, White-tailed Coltang. Let me have a look and see how many that is. It is 16 indeed, yeah. So I have 16 fish, and I'd like more, actually. Although my nutrients are now at a sensible level, so I probably shouldn't add more and feed more, but still. Actually, 16 is a good number, to be fair. I always wanted more, but now I've got fewer. I quite like it. It feels like they've got a bit more space. It's not quite so busy for the fish, but less competition as well. How does Calc bring down PO4? There's some science explanation. It bonds to it or it precipitates it out. I don't know, but it does it. And also, is it a noticeable, i.e. reduced use of GFO? So I haven't used GFO for a long time because I'm lazy. And I've been trying to find ways of decreasing my phosphate without using Raufoss, which I should just get on with Raufoss because it's good stuff. But yeah, I don't use it at all. And the only other thing that I do use that will be reducing my phosphate is Bacto Balance, but I don't think that will be having as much of an effect as Kalkwasser. I'm pretty sure that Kalkwasser is having a fairly significant impact on my phosphate, which is great. So you'll still need to. I should still be using a bit of Raufoss, but it's not. I don't think I need a lot. So yes, absolutely, reduce use of GFO, and you might even find. I don't know if this might be reaching a little bit, but you might find that Kalkwasser is all you need to control phosphate. And our friend actually earlier said that it was so effective that he had to dose phosphate. So there you go. Yeah. And Smoking Kipper says, can't you believe you ripped out that Monty? I wish I'd done it 6 months ago. I wish I'd never put it in, but I wish I'd done it 6 months ago because it was really attacking I was surprised at how stripped back some of my acros were at the base because these things have been attacking them. And the fact those acros had staved off the attack was impressive. But yeah, that was stressful. I'd been thinking about it for weeks, finally decided to do it. And it was all right, to be fair. It wasn't too bad. But yeah, it needed to be done. And I'm not going to get, or if I did, do you know what? I was about to say I'm not going to get a Tropic Thunder Monty again. It's a really nice coral, but I would isolate it on an island, which is the best thing to do with any coral that grows fast, to be fair. UK Reef Bro, after 3 months consecutive ICP, still no arsenic. I'd say myth busted. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's myth busted as such, but I think it's probably one of those things that's it is a risk and there is a chance, but it's probably quite a low risk. I've never really researched into it, but I suspect that you'll find loads of people, or some people, have reported issues with it before, and this didn't just come out of nowhere. But in terms of you saying myth busted, I reckon it's probably not a significant risk. But that's speculation more than scientific proof. Although I've had one ICP after 4 months and I've had no arsenic, so some scientific proof. Kind of. You probably had better Polyp Extension than I did to start with. I've never not dosed Calc, but went from stirrers to buckets at night. Okay, interesting. K20 Charge Mini has a fluval 13.5. Oh no, 14.5. Yeah, I think there is one of them. Got a refugium in the second chamber. Got a 15-litre container in the cupboard nearby with 3 times strength Calc and SW2 powerhead kicking in every 30 seconds. Minimum pH steady 8.3 to 8.4. Very nice indeed. Have you considered doing a podcast? I've listened to them as Spotify, such as Reef Bomb and Reef Therapy. I also listened to Reef Threads back in the day. I think podcasts work better with 2 people talking rather than just one. And this is kind of a similar thing. I'd rather it be 2 people talking, to be honest. But it works okay because there's the interaction with chat. But I wouldn't do a podcast on my own, no. If there was someone else who was up for doing a podcast, maybe another YouTuber, then yeah, I probably would do, to be fair. But I'm already at the point where I'm pushing the amount of work I'm putting into YouTube. So I do these live streams every week now. I do a video every Friday, of course, and I'm starting to do more of the quicker videos on Reef Talk Extra. So I don't want to spend too much more time. But yeah, I'd be well up for it if I could find someone else who could commit to doing it regularly, and we could just have chats. But I don't think I would be approaching anyone. If someone came to me and said, do you know what, Alex, I want to do this. Are you up for it? And all I've got to do is turn my mic on once a week and sit in a nice little audio booth, I'd be up for it. But I don't think at the moment I'm going to go looking for that extra work because I don't have the time. But I do like the idea. I really do like the idea. It's a nice idea. Started a month ago. Growth definitely increased visibly in that time, and calcium and DKH nearly tripled in that time too. Refugium keeps phosphate down for me. Yeah, so everybody loves Kalkwasser growth. So there you go. If you ask yourself, should I be using Kalkwasser? If the answer is, your next question is, do I want my corals to grow quicker? The answer is yes. Reef Doc. I found better colour, and my torch's growth has been loads better, and Hammer's just the same. Monty Plate been growing like mad. But made 2 big toadstools, not happy since Alkyd 12. Ooh, that's a high old alkalinity. How's the Pico tank? It's fine. It's going really well. I just got the P-Tank self-build for Father's Day. Going to use it to start my YouTube channel. Cool. Based on the advice from your last live stream as it's a hot topic right now. Yeah, and it did okay, that video. It did okay. The trouble with the summer is people go outside and do stuff. It's nerds like me who sit in the house all day long, all year round, playing with the tanks. But most people go out and do stuff with their family, and they go on holiday. So YouTube goes flat over the summer, and I could, if whenever I check my graph, so kind of October to December it goes like that, and then January, February, March, and then April it starts to go down, and over the summer you don't get much. So my videos aren't getting great views at the moment, and if you're starting a YouTube channel now, try not to get too disheartened if your videos don't do especially well, because if you were doing it in January, they'd be doing twice as well. But cool, like the idea. I like your ass. Shake your ass. Germany Traveller says, hello, everybody. And Pushcheck says, any tips for chalice corals? Low light, keep them away from other corals because they, I've got one at the moment that I put next to my A can, and it keeps sliding across because it's on a bare bottom. And it, like, I don't know if it's spilling out its guts onto it or whatever, but it's doing something and it's killing it. So keep them away because they can be very aggressive. And some of them have really long sweeper tentacles. But I'm not really a massive chalice expert. I've only kept a couple. Low light is about the only thing I would say. But even then, actually, one of my, a Raja Rampage is getting reasonable light. Not strong, but reasonable. So I don't know, ask someone who knows more about chalices. Kalkwasser causes phosphate to precipitate out, and then it's removed by the skimmer filter roller exception. There you go. There's your scientific explanation. Red Devil, I'm using the Triton method, and I recently sent off an Icp test, and my iodine came back high. Is there a proper way to implement Triton method to make trace elements stay in check? I've never used Triton method. I'm surprised iodine is high. I've never seen iodine high on an ICP. It's always low. Is there a proper way to implement Triton method to make trace elements stay in check? The trouble with ICPs and Triton method and all those sorts of things is that you're inevitably going to end up chasing chase elements and trying to balance things out to get them in check. I suspect over time you'll get to the point where you do, but it's probably a trial and error thing. But I think there's a Triton forum. I've never used Triton, although I did use the Triton ICP, but I've never used Triton method. So I would find a Triton forum and ask people who've got more experience with that. And I don't tend to bother with trace elements. I chuck in a bit of iodine and a bit of manganese when I can be bothered, but I've never had success with trace elements. So probably not the best person to ask, I'm afraid. Can we buy some of the Monty Frags from your demolition episode? I've had loads of people asking that. And this reminds me of, so what's his name? Prestige Reef does videos. Anytime he does a video about pulsing xenia and says, don't buy it, it'll take over your tank. It's a weed. It's a nightmare. It's difficult to get rid of. The next day he sells like a million frags of it. He can't discourage people from it enough, and yet people buy it. I made this video saying, God, this stuff's a nightmare. It grows so fast. It takes over everything and it kills other corals, and everybody wants to buy it. If you live locally, if you live near Surrey, Hampshire, that kind of way, within driving distance of, I live near Woking. If you live within driving distance of Woking, then send me a message on Ultimate Reef is probably best. And I'll sort you out and I'll do a very good deal. I'll give you a nice big old slab for a fraction of what you would have to pay elsewhere. Video podcast with Ryan of Prestige Reef might be cool. Yeah, he's another one who's got no time. Neither of us have got any time, but that would be cool. That'd be quite fun, actually. We get on quite well, and yeah, I think we would have a good laugh. But again, it would rely on him coming to me and saying, I want to do it, I'm prepared to set it all up. And I don't think he would, because I think he's as busy as anyone. But it would be cool, you're right. As long as he hasn't been playing with pallies. Exactly right. Oh, hang on. There we go. As long as he hasn't been playing with pallies, that's coming up. And Mark likes your joke. And Bubbly Reef is laughing at my singing. She's not very kind. Come on. Female clownfish bullied my male to death. Oh, that's unlucky. How shall I go about pairing her up again? Or should I just get rid of her and buy a new pair? I'd be a little bit hesitant, to be honest, because if she's got form, I don't know about adding another one. In theory, you should just add a smaller clownfish and they will sort themselves out, but I would be worried about that. So I might be tempted to return your current clownfish to your local fish shop, and please do return it. No matter how aggressive or nasty a fish gets, please return it and please take care of it. Return it to your local fish shop. They might even give you store credit. and get a new pair is probably what I would do. Although that's a bit, I don't know. I like, you get attached to fish, don't you? So maybe I'd try. I'd just maybe try it. But if the bullying gets nasty, be ready to take action and fish him out, put him in your sump or whatever if you can do. But pros and cons are both ways. Josh, I'm finally jumping in and taking over my dad's fish tank. He has never had any luck with any coral, but we have a 17-year-old yellow tang. Wicked. Any tips for taking over an established tank? If he's never had any luck with coral, I suspect his water parameters aren't fantastic. I've never taken over an established tank, certainly not one that's that kind of age, but I would be testing everything. If he doesn't do water changes, I would do, I don't know. Talk to him about how it runs. The trouble with these questions, right? People ask questions like this, and what I want to do is have a two-way conversation for about an hour, ask you questions, and go into massive detail. But I would probably test very often. I would start doing water changes regularly. I would look for potential issues. I'd want to see what the tank looks like, to be honest. I try to identify what issues there are in the tank, do a ton of water changes, test everything regularly, and get it back in check, and then get it singing. But the fact that it's mature and established is not a bad thing at all. And pulsing Xenia is your favourite coral. It's a wicked coral, and there's nothing wrong with it. Well, there is, but you know what I mean. I don't trust ICP for traces. Yeah, they're not reliable indicators at such low levels. They're okay for macros and heavy metal toxins, but not dosing traces. Are they okay for macro elements? Are they accurate for that? I thought I'd seen one of the BRS videos say they're not great for that. Maybe they are. I can't remember. But yeah, and yeah, if you send another ICP, you'll probably get low iodine. This is the thing. So I'm never 100% sure with ICP tests, because I don't know, can you trust them? And I thought there was a video Dansweave did a while ago, now a defunct channel. He sent off 3 different ICP tests from 3 different companies, and they all gave different results. And he just copped a ton of flack, I think, from the companies involved, saying, "Oh, you can't do this. It's not a fair comparison because X, Y, and Z." And I thought it was a useful video, to be fair. And it's true that happens, you know. So yeah, they're not as accurate as you might like. What's the new ones? ICP MS, because it's currently OES, isn't it? So ICP MS are just starting to come out, and I think they're much better, but I don't really know much about it, to be honest. How come you don't refer to yourself as your friendly reef dork in the opening of your videos anymore? Because I didn't like it. I don't know. I don't really have a good reason, but hey guys, it's Alex here, your friendly reef dork. I know, yeah, it was quite nice actually, wasn't it? I don't know. I just don't. I watched a load of videos about how to be a better YouTuber and how to make your videos more engaging, keep people watching longer. And one of the big things is get to the point. So don't mess around with long intros. Get to the point. Start telling people what they're going to see in your video and showing people straight away. So anything I can cut out like that is good. But my intros always end up at half a minute long anyway, so I don't really get round. I don't really get around to that. But that's probably why. I can't really remember now. It's been a while since I've said that. My male clownfish isn't growing at all, though the female, yeah, is growing quite big. But he does eat a bunch. Maybe he's scared of her. Yeah, probably. My female clownfish is like the size of a fist, and the male doesn't really grow either, which is right. Not accurate, but ballpark when you have such high levels. Yes, saw that ICP comparison video. Better than nothing there. Exactly, and that's it. It's not gospel, but it's useful information, I think, still, and certainly for metals, it's very, very useful for heavy metals. I've had ICP tests tell me there've been something wrong with my pumps before, when I've had corals dying and wanted to figure out what the problem was. So yeah. And oh yeah, very true. Can't remember. You might be talking to someone else, or I might just have caught up. When all you have is a hammer. Oh, better than nothing. When all you have is a hammer. Do you know what? I forget what people said from one second to another, and I can't work out if you're referring to that one. But anyway, I dose 5 litres of saturated Kalkwasser on my night cycle of 12 hours. Don't see the point of a 30 quid ICP test when 30 quid on salt gives me a 50% water change, which is not a bad way of looking at it. I do see the value, but I get it. That's a valid way of looking at things. And we have another YouTuber in the house. The longer you're a YouTuber, the less friendly you get. Why'd you say that? Ryan, you trying to say I'm unfriendly? This is outrageous. The longer you YouTube, the less friendly you get. Is this because you get intolerant of people? Ryan, you've been a YouTuber a lot longer than me, so this is probably you saying that you're less friendly now. But yeah, did you hear people, Ryan, saying that we should do a podcast together? It's too much work, I've said, but yeah, it'd be cool. And Nick says, true, Ryan, to that comment. And maybe Alex talking about himself. Maybe they're talking about himself. I'm going to YouTube less friendly you get. Am I saying I'm less friendly? I don't know. Anyway, I am going to wrap that up now because I've got to be in the office tomorrow. Normally I work from home on Mondays, but I've got to be in the office tomorrow, so I need some beauty sleep. I need to go and pack and stuff. But that's the update on Kalkwasser. Still going well. When I've been doing it for 6 months or longer, I'll do a proper video, which will be like a 5-minute video. And I'll answer one more question actually. Jack's Fish Tanks. What should I get for my first? What tank should I get for my first? Watch my video on the comparison between Waterbox and Red Sea. It depends. It depends on what you want. Really, I think 3 foot is a good size, but it depends what space you've got. Smaller tanks are more manageable because you can do water changes more easily, but bigger tanks are more stable. So I don't know. And Ryan was referring to himself being less friendly because he's been a YouTuber for 10 years. In 10 years, it's Alex, you're unfriendly Reef Talk. Exactly. I'd just be like grumpy and all grumbly. But there we go. Anyway, everybody's saying thank you. Thank you for everybody for joining. I am going to wrap up now, and I will catch you next week. Don't know what the live stream will be about. I'll decide probably on Saturday. But have a great week, guys. See you next time. Cheers. Bye now.